back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth, and it's great to have you guys here on this Thursday, June 6th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So, let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So, we're going to start off the show. We're going to talk about some comments made by Colts center Ryan Kelly about expanding the NFL season to 18 games. And I know I did some segments on Roger Goodell and his comments on it. So Kelly had some comments and some things to say. So I wanted to get into that and give my thoughts on it. Then in the second part of the show, we will continue our schedule breakdowns. Today, we will talk about the Carolina Panthers schedule, and I'll give you my early win-loss prediction for them. And I was doing it a little bit last night, kind of just going through it, and I don't see a lot of wins. But we'll get into it in the second part of the show. Then in the third part of the show, we'll talk about Nick Chubb, where he's at in his recovery from his knee injury, and he kind of talked about the play that he got hurt on, and I wanted to go over that. So that'll be the third part of the show. The fourth part of the show, we'll talk about Kyler Murray and some comments he had on the Cardinals and what, they intend on doing this season. So we'll get into that. And then I'll talk about Brandon Graham, some comments he made about last year, how the defense played. And I kind of wanted to go over, the comparison between last year's defense and the year before that as well. So that's the rundown for the show. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the debate over expanding the NFL season. So Ryan Kelly actually is the vice president on the Players Association Executive Committee, and he criticized the idea of expanding to an 18-game schedule. And I wanted to read, what he had to say exactly. He said, 18 games sounds great when Roger's saying it on McAfee, or Pat McAfee. But until you're the one that's going out there and putting the helmet on for 18 of those games, then come talk to me. And this is what, Goodell said, on the Pat McAfee show when he brought up the 18-game schedule. He said, I'd rather replace a preseason game with a regular season game any day. If we got to 18-2, that's not an unreasonable thing. And I don't think... And then this is what Kelly said. I wish people understood how hard it was to play 16. Then they added another one. And they get rid of preseason games. Well, okay, who's that going to hurt? The guys that don't have a shot. The guys that are undrafted or late-round picks that need to go out there and improve themselves. I think that the fans see it like they don't watch the preseason games, but they have no idea what goes on in the building. And I think that was the last quote. But, I even brought this up when I talked about this, when I did a segment on Goodell and his comments on expanding the season. I did say there's going to be players that aren't too crazy about the idea. And there's already players that weren't too crazy of the idea of expanding it to a 17-game season. Now it's going to go to 18 games at some point. Now, what I wanted to bring up is the current CBA right now, the collective bargaining agreement, is effective through the 2030 season. But it can be amended or renegotiated. So they could bring this idea to the table and, they'll talk about this and see if this can get passed. But there's going to be some pushback, it seems. And it seems player sentiment currently appears largely against the idea of expanding to an 18-game regular season. So we'll see what happens. But for me, look, as a fan, yeah, I would like to see another game. But at the same time, let's be reasonable. I'm siding with the players because ultimately they are what drives the product. And another game added to the season, well, that just creates more injuries. And injuries were a problem last year. Look at how many quarterbacks got hurt last year. So that's just another thing to think about. And Ryan Kelly does bring up a good point. As a fan, yeah, I don't like watching the preseason. And I think most people really don't care about a lot of these guys that are trying to make the roster, these undrafted rookies, maybe guys that are getting another shot at making a team. A lot of people don't really care. But those guys care. And when you take away another preseason game, you're hurting their chances of, showcasing their talent in an actual game to try to make a team, to impress the coaching staff. And you're taking that opportunity away if you're taking away yet another preseason game. So I understand that from that perspective. It's going to be interesting to see how this goes. But the other thing, too, is not only are you adding another game if you go to 18, but at some point they're going to want to go even further than that and expand even more. And also, this doesn't have to do with the 18-game schedule. Well, it does because it's within the 18 games or the 17 games right now. But it's just now, with this season, you have games that are going to be being played on Wednesdays. You have a game that's being played on a Friday. Games are being played on Saturdays, Thursdays. Well, Thursday it's been a while, but now they're really leaning into playing games on Christmas, and Christmas falls on a Wednesday. So now you got the teams that are playing on Christmas. They're going to be playing on Saturday, the previous Saturday, just so they have the same time frame as if it was, a Sunday to Thursday game. But it's weird. Again, it's football, and, as a fan, I'm going to watch it, and it's on Netflix. But, again, I do sympathize with the players. Because, yeah, I don't think they're crazy about playing a game on a Wednesday. Now, I know when I talked about the Chiefs and well, actually, that was the show that got scrapped because my audio was all out of whack. But I talked about the Chiefs and, Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes' comments on their schedule. And they were like, yeah, anytime, anywhere. We're going to be ready to go. Because they're one of those teams that's going to be playing on that Saturday before Christmas. They'll be playing the Texans. And the Steelers will be playing the Ravens. Then the following Wednesday on Christmas, you're going to have the Chiefs playing the Steelers and the Ravens playing the Texans. And Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are saying, yeah, we don't care. We're ready to go. And yeah, I guess that's the mindset to have. But, at the same time, it's like, why do we got to play on a Wednesday? Now, during the pandemic, it was unique circumstances. You had a game being played every single day. And I think that kind of planted the seed for the NFL to say, hey, we've done it before. We can do it again. Because, yeah, you have the Black Friday game. And like I said, you're going to have a couple games on Christmas. which is on a Wednesday. The only day that does not have a game is the Tuesday. Well, or is Tuesday. But who knows? They could push a game to Tuesday. They also have the Brazil game with the Packers and the Eagles on Friday as well. So, yeah, this is something that's going to be back and forth. And like I said, as a fan, yeah, to see another game being played, that would be great. And that would push the Super Bowl to President's Day weekend, which is something that many people want. So they have off the next day. I might not necessarily have off the next day, but a lot of people will. But the players just might not be too crazy about it because, again, it's another game and it's more wear and tear on them. So I get both sides. Like, as a fan, I would like it, but at the same time, I'm like, hey, let's be realistic here. For the players, they don't need another game. I mean, it's another week to get paid, but this is a very violent sport. It's just going to add on to the injuries. There's going to be more injuries. Now, the NFL might say, no, that's not necessarily the case. But I don't agree. I don't agree. I think you're just going to add more injuries. And, yeah, we don't want that. Don't like injuries as it is. But that's just my opinion on it. But, yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think, though. Do you want to see the NFL expand to an 18-game schedule? Because, like I said, it could go even further than that down the line. They could go to 20 games. But, again, that's down the line. There's rumblings about that. But, right now they're focused on an 18-game schedule. So let me know what you guys think about that. Let me know what you think about what Ryan Kelly had to say. Let me know in the comments. So when we come back from our first break of the show, we will talk about the Panthers. We'll do our schedule breakdown for them. I'll give you my early win-loss predictions for them. That's what we will do when we come back from our first break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to break down the Carolina Panthers schedule for 2024, so let's get into that. So the Panthers, they went 2-15 last season. It was not a very good year, to put it lightly. And they're looking for a better year out of Bryce Young in his second season, and they got a new head coach, and like I said, they made improvements to the offensive line. They surrounded Bryce Young with more talent. They drafted a running back, drafted a receiver. They traded for a receiver in Deontay Johnson. So they're hoping that with more weapons and better protection that Bryce Young and a different head coach, that Bryce Young will have a better year too. And Dave Canales was the offensive coordinator with Tampa, and Baker Mayfield had a good year, so maybe he can help out Bryce Young, and Bryce Young can have a better year. So, I think it's only up for Bryce Young. I think he will have a better season. Now, I don't know how much better, but I think he'll have a better season. We'll see. So, yeah, I don't really know. I'm just kind of the mindset that the Panthers are going to have. Maybe they do a little bit better, but yeah, I think the Panthers are going to have a bad year. Their schedule is tough because, you see some of the teams they got to go up against. You got the Chiefs, you got the Bengals on the schedule, you got the Bears, the Eagles. Well, the Bears, we'll see. But I feel like the Bears are going to be good. And within your own division, yeah, you only won one game, and that was against the Falcons last year. So they start off the year against the Saints. Now, do I think they can win this game? Yes. Am I going to say they are going to win this game? No, I'm not. I think they start off the season 0-1. And then they take on, after that, they take on the Chargers. And I think the Chargers are going to be a sneaky good team. We'll see. But I think that they're going to win this matchup here. So I'm going to say the Panthers lose this one. So they're going to start off the year 0-2. Then they take on the Raiders. Raiders play well at home. Do I think the Panthers, have a shot to win the game? Yeah, I think so. And I'm curious to see who ends up with the starting quarterback job. Is it Gardner Minshew? Is it Aiden O'Connell? I got to take the Raiders, though. I think the Raiders win. So now the Panthers are 0-3. And they're like, here we go again. Then they take on Joe Burrow and the Bengals. Now, Joe Burrow and the Bengals, they tend to start off slow. But with that being said, I don't think it really matters here. I think the Bengals are the better team. Much better team. So I'd say the Bengals win here. So now the Panthers are 0-4. And you can kind of see where this is going. Then they take on the Bears. Now, they played the Bears last season, and it was a close game. Justin Fields was hurt, though. Tyson Bagent started. I forget what the final score was. I think, was it 16-13? I'm going to go back and look. But, yeah, it's going to be different now. You got Caleb Williams in there. And, look, like I said, I think the Bears are going to be good. And I think being at home as well, I just think they're going to win in this spot. Yeah, the final score was 16-13. I think the Panthers were winning at one point because I forget. They ran back a punt return or a kick. A punt return. They got a touchdown out of that, but the Bears still won. I think the Bears are going to win here. So now the Panthers are 0-5. Then they take on the Falcons. Now, the Falcons were the one team that the Panthers did beat within their division. So, I don't know if they are going to do that because I think the Falcons are, going to be better with Kirk Cousins. So, I'm going to give the Panthers another loss there. Now, I do think they will pick up their first win either against the Commanders or against the Broncos. I think they will get at least one win from those two games. So, at that point, they're going to be 1-7. But then I have them losing to the Saints yet again. Then they take on the Giants in Germany. Now, the Panthers could win that game. They could. But I think the Giants will win that game. And who knows, maybe I might go to that game. I know my mom was saying it, that, hey, let's go to the game in Germany. And we're like, yeah, that's one of the few games the Giants maybe could win this year, so why not? But yeah, I have the Panthers losing. Then they have a bye. Then they take on the Chiefs. That's a loss. I don't really have to get into the reason why. Now, the Buccaneers, they came close to beating the Bucs twice last year. And I think when I did the Bucs schedule breakdown, I think I had them sweeping the Panthers again. They could win one of those games because they should have won the finale when the Buccaneers won 9-0 because they had 2 touchdowns and one of them ended up being a touchback. The receiver ended up fumbling. I forget who it was. Was it Terrence Marshall? I forget. But they ended up fumbling, so that's points taken off the board. And then they had a touchdown again, a rushing touchdown, but that got called back. There was a penalty on the play. So, and the Buccaneers struggled offensively in that game. They won 9-0. So, they could win one of those games against Tampa. But then after that, against the Eagles, I think that's a loss. Against the Cowboys really beat them up last year. And that was a home game for the Panthers. I think that's a loss. The Cardinals, that could be an interesting game. But, with Kyler Murray, I think the Cardinals win that. But I could see the Panthers pulling off an upset there. And like I said, I could see them pulling off an upset against the Bucs at least once. And like I said, they beat the Falcons last year. But that was with Desmond Ridder at quarterback. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm going to say they get 3 wins. I don't know. I'm not a believer of the Panthers right now. But it could be different. They could beat the Giants. Like I said, the Broncos and the Commanders, they could beat. They could at least get 1 or 2 divisional games this year. The Cardinals, I think, is a winnable game. The Raiders, I think they could win that. So, how many games is that now? So I said the Giants, they could win. The Raiders, they could win. The Commanders and the Broncos, 2 divisional games. The Cardinals, that's 7. But I don't think they're going to win all those games. I think you're going to see 3 wins. So they're going to, the record's going to be better than last year, but not by that much. But we'll see. Bryce Young could go out there and have a great year, and maybe they do win. Maybe they do double their win total to 4 or get to 5. But for me right now, I just don't see it. I don't see it. But I could be wrong. Yeah, I think I said, their schedule is really tough. Yeah, you got the Chiefs in there, the Eagles, the Cowboys. I don't think it's impossible to beat teams in your own division. Well, they also got the Bengals, too. Yeah, I feel like they do have some winnable games here, but I'm not a believer of the Panthers right now. But we'll see. Like I said, they made improvements. So let's see if those pay off. But yeah, right now, I would say 3 wins, maybe. But yeah, they went 2-15 last year. Now, if they finish with a 3-14 record, and Bryce Young has another down year, yeah, that's a problem. But only time will tell. Again, it's very early. Just my opinion. They did also trade Brian Burns, their best defensive player, to the Giants. So, Panthers' defense was not good last year. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But, yeah, I just not really a believer of the Panthers. So, but maybe they could prove me wrong. If they go out there and they win week 1, then already they're off to a much better start than last year. So, and let's not forget, they did beat C.J. Stroud and the Texans. They did do that. That was one of their 2 wins, which is hard to believe. So, there's an upset in there somewhere. So we'll have to see if they could pull it off. But yeah, that's the Panthers' schedule. Let me know what you guys think. How many games do you think they will win in 2024? So before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate, get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we will talk about Nick Chubb, talking about the play that got him hurt and where he's at in his recovery from his injury from last year. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to talk about Nick Chubb, him commenting on where he's at in his recovery from his injury. Also talking about the play itself. And he got hurt in week 2 of the NFL season. That was on that Monday night against the Steelers. So let's get into the discussion here. So this is what Nick Chubb had to say. I'm getting better and better. I'm getting better every day, taking it day by day, getting better. Yeah, just right now, trying to get stronger. I like where I'm at. I'm where I need to be. I would say that. The biggest thing for me is getting better every day. I was down in September. I didn't start moving really well until kind of lately. So now it's feeling good to be able to move around. So yeah, now he's just starting to move around better, which is interesting. But yeah, that's just how bad the injury was. We forget because it was so long ago. But this is what, and then he continues by saying, I'm not looking too far ahead. I'm just taking it day by day. It's Wednesday. Well, this is from yesterday, but yeah, I'm taking it day by day. It's Wednesday. I had to get better today on Wednesday. That's my whole mindset. And then this is what he said about the play, because it was basically Minkah Fitzpatrick driving his helmet into his knee, and this is what he said about the play. He said, I don't think it was dirty at all. I'm not blaming Minkah Fitzpatrick. It's part of the game. So Nick Chubb doesn't view it as dirty. And I don't think... I don't remember what the conversation was about it. Was there really a strong opinion on whether it was dirty or not? But I think Minkah Fitzpatrick also got banged up on the play too. I'd have to go back and watch the play again, even though it's kind of tough to watch. But yeah, Nick Chubb said that he doesn't think it was a dirty play. And then he continues by saying, definitely a blessing. They could have just cut me dry. Oh, this is about, I guess, renegotiating the contract. But he said, definitely a blessing. They could have just cut me dry and left me hanging right. But they did a great job. I want to be here in Cleveland. They know that, so we came to a great point. So, yeah, that is about, I guess, renegotiating the contract. It's a blessing to play this game. He continues, you can't take it for granted because in one play it can be all taken away. I'm just blessed to have so much support around Cleveland, the fans, my friends, family, just to keep me uplifted and keep me going. And yeah, Nick Chubb has been consistent throughout his career. One of the more consistent running backs in the NFL. And yeah, he's had some injuries over the years. Well, in college, he had another knee injury as well. But, when he got to the NFL, yeah, he's been relatively healthy. But yeah, that was a significant injury that knocked him out for the rest of the year, and now he's just starting to come back from it. And, we'll see how he is. The Browns are going to ease him back into it. And, they had Jerome Ford last year who did a nice job. They didn't bring back Kareem Hunt. I know they also actually brought in Deontay Foreman as well. But, yeah, they're going to ease Chubb back into it. And if Nick Chubb can get back to how he was before the injury, or at least get there to some extent, I mean, that only just adds to this Browns offense. And they're going to need him. So I kind of wanted to go through his stats from the last couple of seasons. But yeah, he has been, like I said, he's been very consistent throughout his career. He was drafted in 2018, and he had almost 1,000 yards. He had 996 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns. And the following season, he had almost 1,500 yards rushing, 1,494 rushing yards, and 8 touchdowns. Then he had 1,067 rushing yards and 12 touchdowns. He missed some time due to injury. I remember that because I had him in fantasy that year. Then in 2021, 1,259 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns. 2022, 1,525 rushing yards and 12 touchdowns. And then last year, only 170 yards. But yeah, that's because he ended up getting hurt. But yeah, like I said, he's been consistent. And the Browns, they're going to ease him back into it. And we'll go from there. And we'll see, what kind of season he can end up having. But like I said, if, he's healthy, that only just adds to this Browns offense. And the Browns had a ton of injuries last year. When it came to quarterback, offensive line, I believe, and, running back as well. They had to bring back Kareem Hunt when Chubb got hurt. And him and, like I said, Jerome Ford did a nice job filling in. So, yeah, now with Chubb back in the fold and hopefully, being ready, by week 1, if not, one of the weeks after that, we'll see how he does. And, he's one of my favorite players, I would say. So to see him back out there, be nice to see. And yeah, I mean, it's just, watching that game when he got hurt, it hurt the NFL community. There was, it was devastating to see that. And especially after the previous week where you had Aaron Rodgers going down, and then the following week you got Nick Chubb. It's just, in general, there were a lot of injuries last year. And, it goes back to our conversation we had before about the NFL expanding to an 18-game schedule. Yeah, it just adds to more injuries. But last year, there was a lot of injuries, all over the place. So, yeah, there's a lot of guys that are going to be up for Comeback Player of the Year. Nick Chubb is going to be in that conversation, if he goes out there and has a great year. And, some of the quarterbacks that got hurt as well. I think it's more likely that a quarterback's going to win, but you never know. Nick Chubb could go out there and, if he doesn't miss any time and rushes for over 2,000 yards, be hard to not give it to him. But, I not saying that I think that's going to happen, but I feel like a quarterback is going to win that award just because there were a lot of quarterbacks that went down, including the quarterback that's on Nick Chubb's team in Deshaun Watson. So we'll have to see. But you know what? Nick Chubb's in good spirits, and that's good. And we'll see, if he does play week 1, because maybe he doesn't. Maybe we got to wait, till week 2 or week 3. But he'll be ready within the first couple or few weeks of the season. That's what it seems like. But I don't know. We'll have to keep an eye on it. But when he plays, he's a lot of fun to watch. And, the Browns will be happy to have him back. And he wants to stay in Cleveland. He could have been another running back that was on the move and went somewhere else if they, cut ties with him. You see how many running backs changed teams. Saquon, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard. Zeke went back to Dallas after spending 1 year in New England. He would have been another, Aaron Jones as well. DeAndre Swift. A lot of running backs changed teams. And Nick Chubb, if you threw him in there, a team definitely would have picked him up. But, we'll see how it goes. And I'm just happy, for me, I'm happy that, he's on the other side of this, and now we just got to see him play, which I'm excited for. So, but let me know what you guys think about what Nick Chubb had to say. How do you see him performing? Yeah, I mean, it's a big year for the Browns. If you could get these guys back healthy, Nick Chubb, Deshaun Watson, the offensive line could stay intact, the Browns are going to be a good team. You know, they're backed by a good defense as well, and, you know, they went out and they traded for Jerry Jeudy, added to a receiving core that has Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore, and David Njoku as well, the tight end. Yeah, I mean, I like the Browns as a team. I think they're going to be a good team. You know, Deshaun Watson might struggle, but, I mean, I think this team can make the playoffs. I mean, they made the playoffs with that QB carousel that they had last year, starting all these different quarterbacks. So, I think they should make it this year. But that's my opinion. So, and Nick Chubb is going to be a part of that. But we'll see. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think about what Chubb had to say. How do you see him performing in 2024? I mean, again, the Browns are going to ease him back into it. And I think, you know, later in the season, that's when you're going to see him really start to get it going. But we'll keep our eyes on it. So we're going to take our third break of the show. And then when we come back, we'll talk about Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals. We'll talk about his optimism for the season, just some things he had to say. Also, I wanted to comment on some things that wide receiver Bryce Butler had to say about Kyler. I also wanted to comment on that as well when we come back from break. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we're going to talk about Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals, some comments made by Kyler on the season. And I also wanted to comment on some things that former NFL wide receiver, I guess you could say former NFL wide receiver, Bryce Butler had to say about Kyler. So wanted to get into that. But after we talk about what Kyler had to say about the upcoming season. So last year, the Cardinals, didn't finish with a good record, and Kyler returned later in the season, and they won a couple games with him. He's, coming off of the ACL injury that he suffered towards the end of the 2022 season, and the Cardinals are committed to Kyler, and he's their franchise quarterback. They even posted it on social media that he's their franchise quarterback, and their head coach, Jonathan Gannon, has spoke highly of him. So, yeah, Kyler's their guy. And this is what Kyler had to say about the season. He said, "Am I excited? Hell yeah, I'm excited. I feel good. Just to be healthy is a blessing, and to have the support of obviously your head coach and everybody around you. Yes, for sure. I believe in what we can do." He also said, "It felt like one of the best off seasons I've had in a long time. Just being able to be healthy and to be in touch with the guys and actually be a part of it. It just makes a difference. It makes a difference when I'm out there, and we're all getting better together, not only on the field, but off the field. It's been a good off season." And in the article that I have here, it says, "If said good off season translates to a successful 2024 season, what would that be?" And he said, win the Super Bowl, when asked what his mission was. And he said, "Every year is to win the Super Bowl. I don't play for any other reason." And he said, "Going into the season, I feel just really locked into what we're doing. It's really, for me, confidence in understanding where to go with the ball no matter what they're doing, because I've been in the system a year. When you feel like that, the sky's the limit. I've played quarterback my whole life, but when you're at that point, and I can't really explain it to you guys, it's a good feeling. At that point, it's just going out there and executing. And he also said there's definitely a juice around the team, a camaraderie about this team. Since I got here, I was usually playing with a lot of older guys. It's the first time I feel like I'm kind of the older guy. There's no knock playing with older guys, but when you're playing with guys around your age, it's easier to gel or to do things like that. I think all that matters. And he also said, I don't put any limitation on what we can do. So, yeah, Kyler Murray is very optimistic, which is encouraging. And, yeah, I mean, towards the end of the year, you won a couple games. They beat the Eagles in Philly. They also won his first start. That was against the Falcons as well. I thought he played okay when he came back. And, yeah, it is interesting him talking about playing with older guys because there's no more DeAndre Hopkins. You had J.J. Watt as well. You also had A.J. Green there for a couple years, I believe. Well, I know he was there. I don't remember how many years he was with the Cardinals. But, yeah, he was there for a couple years. 1 or 2 years, I think. Who else? Zach Ertz was there as well. But, yeah, now you got guys around his age. I mean, they drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. You got Trey McBride, who is a rising star at the tight end position. Last year had a really good year. And you also got James Conner, who has been there for quite some time now. And, you know, he wants to stay in Arizona. So, yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see how the Cardinals are going to be. Now, I don't think they're going to make it to the Super Bowl. But, yeah, I mean, I had them ranked last in the division in the NFC West. But I don't think that division is, you know, bad. I think every team can be okay. Well, I mean, the 49ers, they're in a tier of their own. You got the Rams, who I think are going to be a playoff team. The Seahawks, they got a new head coach, but I like their roster. So, you know, they're going to be competitive. And I think with Kyler Murray playing a full season, the Cardinals are going to be competitive too. Now, I don't look at them as a playoff team. I mean, that's the next division that we're going to do because we finished the NFC South. We're going to be doing the NFC West next. So, I think we'll do the 49ers schedule tomorrow. But, yeah, when we get to the Cardinals, see how many wins I can give them. But, yeah, with Kyler back in the fold, playing a full year, yeah, I mean, I think the Cardinals are definitely going to win some games this season, more than last year. But, yeah, they're in a tough division, so I'm not really expecting them, you know, to win the division. But, you know, they could be competitive. That's really how I see them right now. But, yeah, I mean, it's nice to see the optimism from Kyler Murray and, you know, talking about gelling with his teammates and, yeah, I mean, let's see what they could do. I mean, I think with him playing a full year, I think the offense is going to be good. But, you know, I still think that they're not going to be – I don't think they're going to finish with a winning record. But who knows? Who knows? I mean, Jonathan Gannon had this team ready to play every single week. And they won games that they shouldn't have won. You know, they beat the Cowboys with Josh Dobbs at quarterback. I mean, they were winning against the Bengals at one point, but then, you know, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase took over that game and, you know, forget it. But, yeah, the Cardinals were competitive. So now with Kyler playing the full year, you know, another draft, another free agency cycle, you know, went through. And now you gave Kyler a number 1 wide receiver again in Marvin Harrison Jr. You know, let's see what they could do. But I also, so that's my thoughts on that. But I did want to get into what Bryce Butler had to say. And Bryce Butler bounced around a little bit. He was with the Cardinals, but I think he wasn't on the team once they drafted Kyler. But this is what he had to say about Kyler Murray. He said, Kyler's not popping off anywhere. He said this on the Upon Further Review podcast. There's a podcast, there's a name for every podcast. Well, that doesn't make any sense. There's like a podcast everywhere now. I guess that's what I meant to say. But he said because the thing that people don't really know about Kyler is he is not really a leader, and people don't really surround himself around him. That's the thing that people don't really think about. They just look at his talent and go, "Oh, he could go anywhere and transcend." You have to be a leader to be a quarterback. Well, I mean, the comments I just read you before, I think that contradicts that a little bit. But also, so he did our rankings on this podcast, and I think it was the last 10 quarterbacks that were drafted first overall. And he ranked Kyler last. So his ranking was Cam Newton, Joe Burrow, Andrew Luck, Jared Goff, Trevor Lawrence, Baker Mayfield, Caleb Williams, Bryce Young, Jameis Winston, and then Kyler. I mean, at that point, he's just being disrespectful because I do not think Kyler should be ranked 10. I think he should be above Jameis. He should be above Bryce Young. Caleb Williams hasn't even played a down yet. He should be ranked ahead of him. And then when you get up to Baker, I mean, I think you could go either way. I think Kyler is better than Baker, but you know what? Baker's got 2 playoff wins. So I would say Kyler's probably 6 or 7, in my opinion. I think 10 is just flat out disrespectful. But yeah, Bryce Butler, not a fan. But now there was a tweet. Bryce Butler was a part of the Steve Wilkes, Josh Rosen training camp roster the year before Kyler was drafted. Didn't even make the 2018 regular season roster. So what is he going on about? Being on the grounds in Arizona to know firsthand Kyler isn't a leader. So yeah, Bryce Butler got called out. He also had another tweet. Bryce Butler is talking such a false, outdated narrative about Kyler Murray. Butler likely doesn't have any inside info, getting cut a season before Kyler arrived, and the Cards undergoing a massive overhaul since his short stint in Arizona. Don't listen to anything Bryce Butler has to say. 2018 was one of the worst rosters put together in the league, and he couldn't make the 53. His words mean absolutely nothing. Wow. So yeah, interesting stuff there. So I don't really know what he's going on about. If he wasn't even on the team when Kyler was there, that just doesn't make sense. But like I said, the comments that Kyler was making about the team and that there's a camaraderie and they're gelling, I mean that contradicts a lot of what Bryce Butler has to say. But yeah, Kyler Murray has been criticized. I know there was some criticism. And yeah, I mean his only playoff game that he played in against the Rams, it was not good. It was not good. And there have been some questions about his leadership. But you know what? You kind of go through it. The NFL does humble you. So if there was anything like that, and, Kyler dealt with an injury, 2 years ago, and, he worked his way back and played a little bit last year. So, you know what? It's all about growth. And I think he has been through a lot. And, you know what? Let's see. And you have a head coach and a team that believes in you, and that only just helps you out. And I'm curious to see how the Cardinals are going to do. Like I said, I don't expect them to win a ton of games, but you know what? I think they could be a competitive team because they did show it last year with the limitations that they had. Now you got Kyler for a full season. I expect Kyler to go out there and have a good year. Now, I don't know if that's going to mean the Cardinals can make the playoffs. I know there's some people that do believe they can. And in the NFC, yeah, I mean, making one of the wild cards, I think is possible. And, when you compare the two conferences, the AFC is far superior in my opinion. So we'll see. But that's just a couple of things that I want to touch upon with the Cardinals. But let me know what you guys think about what we discussed. How do you see Kyler and the Cardinals performing in 2024? So, we're going to take our final break. And then when we come back, we'll talk about some comments made by Eagles defensive end Brandon Graham. I'll talk about what the Eagles have done to kind of revamp their defense. And that's what we will do to conclude the show for today. So, for one final time today, stick around. And we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to talk about the Eagles, the defensive changes that they've gone through this offseason. I'll talk about what Brandon Graham had to say about the defense. So that is how we will end off the show. So back-to-back days, finishing the show off with an Eagles topic. So this is what Brandon Graham had to say about the Eagles defense. So he was talking about defensive line coach Clint Hurt, and this is what he said. We've got a good coach in Clint. I really think that last year we just didn't, I feel like we just didn't, that's what we didn't have. We didn't have all the right coaches in the right position. I would say you could just see the guys just truly believing in what we've got going on, and I'm excited for the young guys that just came in, the new rookies coming in. They're really going to get a good shot and good taste of what it really is to be in the NFL. You just noticed little stuff last year, certain stuff you weren't on the same page about, just here and there. It would pop up, but it popped up in a big way in that last game. It's just like, if there's anything I learned, you always want to make sure that we just have the proper communication. So it's real big communication going on right now within the locker room, on the field, in the classrooms. I know Howie Roseman was going to get it fixed, because once you notice, you've just got to deal with it during the year. Howie Roseman being the general manager, of course. That's how it is. But I don't see none of that at all. I'm more excited just because we do got Fangio, somebody experienced, real good. I'm not saying anything about the past, but it was just more, you can just tell that everybody's on the same page about stuff. And yeah, I mean, the Eagles, they did a lot. They drafted a couple of corners in Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, and they also brought back C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and they're expecting big things out of Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter in Fangio's scheme. But I did want to go back, and I wanted to do a comparison of the 2022 Eagles and the 2023 Eagles. So their defense in 2022, they gave up 344 points, and points per game was 20.2, which is good. But then the numbers went up. They gave up 428 total points, and their opponent's points per game went up by 25.2 points per game. And 2022, you had multiple guys had double-digit sacks. You didn't have that last year. And then the other thing, too, is I wanted to look at the rankings for the defenses last season. And the Eagles were towards the bottom in a lot of categories. So total defense, Eagles were, like I said, they're towards the bottom. They gave up an average of 356.1 yards. And then their playoff average, they gave up 426 total yards against the Buccaneers. And touchdowns allowed was 51. Then you go to pass defense. And the Eagles gave up 252.7 passing yards per game, which only the Commanders were worse at 262.2. And then in the playoffs, they gave up 307 yards, or passing yards, to Baker Mayfield. And passing touchdowns allowed, 35. And I think, the only team that was worse, I think, as I'm looking here, was the Commanders. And Commanders' pass defense was not good. And they gave up 3 passing touchdowns to Baker Mayfield. But if you look at all those touchdowns, the tackling was horrible. They just let guys go right by him. Didn't even try. It looked like they didn't even want to try to tackle anybody. But passing defense was not good. Run defense, I think the Eagles were still, they were they were in the top half. They gave up 103.4 rushing yards per game. They gave up 119 in the playoff game against the Bucs. They allowed 13 rushing touchdowns. No rushing touchdowns in the playoff game against the Bucs. But, they were more towards the top. And then scoring defense, towards the bottom again. Gave up an average of 25.2 yards per game, or 25.2 points per game. They gave up 32 against the Bucs. And total touchdowns allowed, 51, which I'm looking because I'm going through the whole list. Yeah, only the Cardinals and the Commanders gave up more touchdowns. Yeah, so that just shows you where the Eagles were as a defense last year. Red zone defense, yeah, towards the bottom. Defensive red zone touchdown rate, 66.1. And only the Bears had 68.9, and the Browns had 71.4. And, wow, in the playoffs, the Browns gave up... The Browns, it was 100%, the playoff rate. Yeah, I mean, the Texans really were tough on the Browns in that playoff game. But yeah, so the Eagles were towards the bottom there. They were ranked 30th. And then you go to third down defense, they were 31st. So yeah, the defense was not good last year. It was not good. And they're hoping that with the changes that they made, both personnel, well, players and coaches, that it's going to be an improved defense. And I think it will, because also I talked about the rookies that they brought in, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. But yeah, they also did sign Devin White. Now, I don't know how much of an upgrade he's going to be, but yeah, linebacker was a problem last year, so I think he could at least help. And they also signed Bryce Huff from the Jets, because you had to replace Hassan Reddick. So you got him. You still got Brandon Graham. Losing Fletcher Cox is going to hurt. So that's another thing I want to keep an eye on. Because, yeah, you lost him and you lost Jason Kelce on the offensive line. So, yeah, it's just stuff to keep an eye on. I just remember, the photo you saw of Jason Kelce, Brandon Graham, Lane Johnson, and Fletcher Cox. Half of those guys are gone now. And Brandon Graham, this is it for him. So he's going to be gone. And who knows what's going to happen with Lane Johnson after 2024. He might be gone too. Those guys were, the foundation of that team. And they're leaving. So, but I think the Eagles are going to be very good. I think they are. As a Giant fan, you don't like to say that, but they're going to be good. Offensively, they got a ton of talent. And defensively, I think they have talent as well. It's just, now it's a new era. And we'll see if they could bounce back, which I think they will. I think they definitely will. But only time will tell. So, but yeah, I mean, I just went over the stats from last year of their defense. Defense was not good. It was not good. So we'll keep an eye on how they do, of course. And I mean, what did I have? I had them winning 12, 13 games. Yeah, I think you're going to see them, have a top 2 or 3 seed in the NFC. It's going to be, you got the 49ers, the Lions, and the Eagles. I think that might be your top 3. We'll see if the Packers have anything to say about it, because, the only way they're going to have a top 3 seed if, they're battling out, if they beat out the Lions for the division. I think all those teams are better than every team in the South. So I think the NFC South, you can pencil them in as like the 4th seed. But yeah, it's going to be between those teams. And I don't want to forget Dallas, because Dallas did win the division last year, but I think the Eagles are going to be better than Dallas this year. I think they'll split when they play each other, because that's what they did last year, even though Dallas could have won both games. But I think that's what you're looking at right now, is you got the Eagles, the 49ers, and the Lions. Those might be that could be your top 3 seeds right there. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think about what we talked about. How do you see the Eagles performing? How do you see their defense? You think their defense is going to be improved, or is it still going to be a mess? I don't think it is. I think they went through a lot of changes. Vic Fangio is a good defensive coordinator. I think their defense is going to be good. It's going to be better than it was last year. That's for sure. in my opinion. But like I always say, only time will tell. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows on the network. Like I said yesterday, I will be making an appearance on the Chip Shot Football Podcast, which is hosted by Manny. Does a great job. Myself and Emran, the host of the soccer podcast, we will be on that show tomorrow, and that's at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So that'll take me right into Yankees-Dodgers tomorrow night, which I'm really excited for. Big series coming up this weekend. And also, NBA Finals starts tonight, so make sure to check out Nelson's show, get his thoughts on the series. I'm sure he's already talked about it, but make sure to tune in for his show today. And yeah, but check out all the other shows. So I just wanted to bring all that up. But like I said, I'll be making an appearance on Manny's show tomorrow. I'll make sure to bring it up tomorrow as well. So yeah, with that is all the time that we have for today. Once again, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.